Editor me here. Before we get started on this one, I just wanted to let you know this was my first interview ever, so I was a little nervous. If things seem a little rocky, that's why. As well, these Simon Viklund interviews were a little last minute, so we didn't have a lot of time to prepare questions or anything like that. Oh, also one more thing. I hadn't played the game at this point. If you've watched the Ulf interview that I also released around the same time as this one, I had already played the game before I did that interview. For the Simon interview here, I hadn't played the game yet. I just figured I'd throw that in here. I still think it turned out pretty well, so I hope you enjoy the video. And subscribe if you want to see some more content like this. All right, so what do you do here at 10 Chambers, and what was your main job on Den of Wolves?
Well, the answers are the same to both of those questions. I'm the audio director and music director and composer for the company and for Den of Wolves.
Fantastic. So I know narrative is a really big one for you. We just had a little bit of discussion about that. Do you feel like you need to be in charge of the narrative as a music designer, or is that something that you can do working together with another team?
Actually, I used to be the narrative director for Den of Wolves, but sharing my time between being the audio director, composer, and narrative director was too much. I was spread too thin. So I've actually stepped down from being the narrative director. I still care a lot about the narrative, but I don't want to step on anyone's toes now that it's not my official responsibility. So that's why I feel like I can talk about the narrative, because I know a lot about the backstory, and I feel like I have a good sort of sense of Ulf's direction for the narrative of the game, like the tone and everything, and the reasoning behind our decisions regarding narrative. But I'm not responsible for the narrative anymore, and we'll see how that, if I sort of become part of maybe a narrative team that we grow in the future. But for now, Ulf has more of the responsibility for the narrative.
That was a more recent one, just seeing how well you talked about and knew just everything about the narrative and the everything behind the game. So I thought that was really interesting. I could tell you care a lot about it and that you know a lot about it. I figured that also can segue into some music. Something that I think you're very popular for is being able to create a narrative with your musical compositions. Some of the ones I think of are First World Bank and Payday the Heist. I feel like you walk in, there's a tone set by your track, and then as you're building into a police assault coming in, you get that feeling of losing control in your composition and regaining control as soon as the wave is over. So do we have stuff like that for Den of Wolves? Is it going to feel the same way, or how have you set the tone for Den of Wolves?
It's similar, yeah, definitely. What's important, I think, to point out, and not just for the music but for the gameplay, is that with Den of Wolves we want to create a more dynamic experience where it's not always like, oh, it's stealth, and then when you get discovered, it's action, 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 action until you either fail or succeed. Right. But you can actually go back to stealth and sort of regain control. So as players, you're incentivized to keep playing and try to get back to stealth, because it's not, if you decided to complete the map in a stealth way, you haven't necessarily failed because you failed stealth. That will be the case in Payday, the Heist and Payday 2. I haven't played enough of Payday 3 to know, but for those two games, the first two games, you would essentially have to restart the map if you wanted to stay in stealth, because once the alarm goes off, they know where you are, and you're never gonna go back to stealth. And action is fun, but it's like very much cake until you can't eat anymore, So in order to intersperse the action with other things, we both allow players to regain control and actually go back to stealth again on their own initiative. But also, as I explained with the dive concept, allows us to sort of like suddenly cut to something different that isn't connected to the real world, and then you get to experience something else that has a change of pace, change of intensity, and a change of scenery before you come back again. And the music obviously has to be able to follow along when that happens. So the music system in Den of Wolves is a little bit more complicated or complex or sophisticated, maybe I should say, than in Payday. Payday the Heist and Payday 2, I don't know anything about the music system and the complexity of it in Payday 3, but certainly not as complex as GTFO, because I went down a rabbit hole with that game where I explored sort of how complex can I make it and how responsive can the music really be. But that made it so that I had to make little sort of fragments of music that were then pieced together at runtime by the music engine, and it wasn't very stimulating for me as a composer and producer to make that content. I want to make songs. I want to make like 90-second loops, like exactly, and not cut them up and let the game do the work of arranging it. So that makes it much more fun for me to make the music for Den of Wolves.
I think that's important.
Oh yeah.
It really shows too, I think, when you're having a good time. We feel your passion, I think, as people playing like the Payday series, for example. We can feel your passion in the composition as it's, ebbing and flowing with everything that's going on. So I think that's important.
And I think that goes for the game development in general as well, not just for the music, but if people enjoy what they're doing. And that's super important for us as 10 Chambers to create a work environment where there's balance between work life and free time, work-life balance, so that we enjoy the journey of making the game, rather than saying like, let's crunch for 4 years and enjoy life once the reviews are in. But we want to take our time in order to be able to enjoy the journey of making the game, and I think that will show in the end product.
Now that you've described it that way, I can see that in GTFO as well. You described it as the game that you guys had to make, and it was because you needed to get away from how the industry was developing as it is, create your own thing for you. And, it was your vision. And while it wasn't perfect or applicable to everybody, the people that did enjoy the game really, really enjoyed the game. Yeah, and so exactly. I see that.
That was the idea.
I feel it.
Yeah. The people that is for,
yes,
they really understand, but it's certainly not for everyone.
Right. And that's something that I discuss with my community a lot, is sometimes games have to be. You said something earlier that I wrote down. It was a quote that I used to describe 10 Chambers and Den of Wolves and the creation of Den of Wolves. If you make a game for everyone, it's for no one. Yeah. And so I think it's fantastic that you're doing that here, and that's exactly what I want. Let's go over to influences. What were some of the things that influenced Den of Wolves in particular?
Well, from a game design, because I can speak of. For Ulf, you'll interview Ulf, I guess, so maybe you have that same question for Ulf.
Yes, I probably will.
I think he'd say that more than being influenced by the things we've done before, the things we've done before are stepping stones towards what we're doing now. Right. So it's more like Den of Wolves is the next step in the evolution of trying to chase the perfect sort of first-person shooter co-op game, really. Because we certainly see a lot of flaws in the things that we've done before. You have to make compromises. You have to sort of take shortcuts and stuff. Like when time is running out, when resources are running out for whatever reason, you have to just put something out the door that is true to the vision with what you have. Right. But with Den of Wolves, we're trying to correct a lot of things and trying to explore better ways to tell a story, better ways to allow people to find one another and play together and get along in a co-op game, allowing more player agency, things like that, from a music perspective, it's not so much taking inspiration from things I've done before.
Growing.
Yeah, more growing, exactly. But I would also say, maybe on one level, I see that the way I didn't care about the music being a part of something bigger served it well. Not thinking about I need to make the music subtle because it needs to leave room for dialogue or it needs to leave room for sound effects and stuff like that. I was thinking I'm going to make music that's loud, abrasive, in your face. And if people don't like it, they can turn it down. Right. They can turn it down. That was my philosophy. And I think that's why the music in Payday the Heist and Payday 2 works so well even outside of the game experience, because it's not subtle. It fills all the frequencies, in the entire spectrum, So you can listen to it while you're driving or studying or at the gym, whenever you need some aggressive music to keep you going, Yeah. So that's the philosophy. I'm picking that out from the music, the way I made music for the Payday games, and applying that to Den of Wolves. Yeah. You
mentioned in I believe it was a YouTube short, you did another interview that they cut up. It was talking about the cultures of Midway City. Did you make a lot of music based around different cultures? And if you did you have a favorite culture, or did you have a favorite culture that you created music around?
Well, we want Midway City to be like this cultural melting pot, but we don't want it to necessarily stand out that this is the, Koreatown, and then it's all Korean music or whatever. It's a little bit of everything everywhere, What we did was trying to bring a lot of sort of ethnic instruments into a studio and recording everything that felt like it would be adjacent to, Oceania or Polynesia or anything from around, I guess, the Pacific Ocean. So it could be even, native South American or North American and Asia in general, and staying away for the most part from Africa and Europe, because it's too far.
Right.
But having instruments that feel islandy, for lack of a better word, sort of primitive percussion instruments to sprinkle into the music as a flavor, but I'd love to sort of collaborate with people from that part of the world in order to make it, both to make it authentic, more authentic, but also just for me, for the fun of it, to be able to sort of connect with someone who does a completely different style of music, and that I would never be coming to contact with, in any other circumstance, and then be able to collaborate with them and make something that no one's ever heard before. That would be amazing. So I'm hoping that Denowils will allow me to do that. I would love to have like a Polynesian rapper in the soundtrack or something. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I think that's the mark of a good composer, trying to bring in as much as they can, get a lot of influence, and kind of, make everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's very cool. This is kind of a more simple one, just more about you. What is your signature when you're making a composition? Is there something that I can hear in a song and just know Simon made this? And has that changed over the years, or is there's something that you just always want to slip into like a soundtrack?
That's hard to put your finger on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can also come back to that if you'd like.
No, I don't think that I'll ever have a good answer to that. Like, I like when things, like if there's a rhythm to the melody, I'd like other instruments to tag along with that and emphasize that rhythm as well. Even though the other instruments might not be melodic, so they can't play the melody, but they can hit the note, like hit the accents, in the timing, So I like doing that sort of stuff. So I when there's a song and something melodic is doing maybe sort of if I have like a steady kick that just
Right.
like something that sort of, and then the melody would do something that is ding, 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 like that.
Gotcha.
That sort of becomes a hook, I like to think in terms of riffs and hooks more than like chord progressions and bigger sort of overarching changes in the music. It's more like little hooks and repeated elements, which is one of the reasons why I had such a hard time making the music for GTFO, because it's supposed to be more cinematic in a way and more symphonic, I guess, with traditional instruments. But I kept making the music the same way I make electronic music, which is more like riff-based and repeating things. And then after 4 bars of this, it keeps playing, but I add this other layer. And that's not really how you would make, orchestral music, It's not made that way. And I don't have any classical training in orchestration or anything like that. So it made it really hard to make music, that type of music. It's not my forte, really. But yeah, I do have a sound, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I don't know if I could point out anything that feels like that you would always be able to
like
say that it's like, oh, this is Simon. But I do think that the people who enjoy my music would be able to listen to music maybe from Denowils, not knowing that it's me, and then when they're told that it's me, they say, that makes sense. You know.
Absolutely. We see that like there was obviously a time where you made the Payday 2 music, and then they swapped over to Gustavo for as a lot of the last couple years of the game, I think it was. There's definitely a difference, and we can feel like, I'm glad you brought up with the signature conversation with like the beats. I think that's what it is for me. I can always tell it's a Simon track when I can feel the beats and then another layer over that. And as things are building up, I think that really contributes to your story that you're telling in the song. Yeah. And so I don't know any other games that can tell a story with their music as well in just like a silly little game about shooting cops and stealing stuff, you know? Like,
but there aren't many games about silly games about shooting cops, so maybe that's the reason. I don't know.
Hopefully they take inspiration off of how you do it, because I think the narrative of it all just comes together really well. And it feels like it should just be a game where I hop in and steal from a bank, but it makes me feel like I'm a superhero at times when the music just hits just right or something like that. Yeah. And I think that's your signature to me. I know that was kind of like not a question, but
yeah, maybe there's something to how it matches the gameplay, you know, and like and being bold in a way, because I did have the ambition when the slate was blank, so to speak, for the first Payday game. I was like, what's the sound, you know? And before I landed in arrived in sort of like, oh, it's electronic with some distorted like gritty elements to it, like the texture of rock, but with electronic stuff, you know. I tried other things, you know, that was more closer to like a Michael Mann scene or whatever, like more subtle and ambient in a way with like minimalist parts, you know. But then it didn't feel like that was me, really, you know. Right. So being bold in a way and just going like, oh, it's a movie about bank robbers, but the music is almost like club music. Yeah. I guess is part of the signature as well.
So I've been working on a Payday the Heist video for a very long time. Yeah. And so I think one of the things I want to talk to you a little bit about is just a couple things on that. Do you have a favorite track from Payday the Heist that you composed?
I think is the highest successful. Yeah. It has this sort of. It's the triplet. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, and that's sort of like strut. It has a strut to it, like a cocky.
That's us walking into the safe house like we did it.
Yeah, it's very very cocky and sort of. Yeah, and if I feel like that matches the state of mind you're in when you beat the heist, you know.
Oh man, 25 minutes of Heat Street on Overkill. I'm exhausted, but we did it.
And then with that sort of super dry snare drum, and it's a nice blend between electronic, because it doesn't feel like a rock, like it's not real drums. You can tell that it's like sort of sampled stuff and processed in a way, but there's guitars still. So I don't know. I like that one. There's more rock elements to the first game, I guess. I think that's the one that comes to mind. But I did like the more traditional sort of house techno thing I did for Mercy Hospital. No Mercy. Yeah, No Mercy.
It's very funny you say that, because that's my favorite Payday the Heist track is the one for No Mercy. So. Yeah.
It has a good hook, like a melodic sort of. Now I can't remember it, but anyway, I like doing the reinterpretation of it. A few years later, I think in 2017 or whenever it was, I made a reinterpretation of it, and that reminded me like it's a nice melody that has a.
I just really like the back of it with like the. It feels like I'm like a heartbeat sensor almost. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's my favorite one by far. I think it's great that you bring that up. Favorite one from Payday 2? Just if you have a quick answer.
Much a bigger game. And I made so much more music to that one. There's a lot of tracks. I like And Now We Wait. Yeah. Because it has a really sort of I love Photech. It's drum and bass artist that was huge for me in the 90s, and he has a very distinct sort of metallic sound to his sampled drums, and sort of unexpected rhythms with the drums and stuff. Like it's super interesting, and I made that track very much inspired by Photech. So I think I did a good job, not emulating Photech, but like whenever you aim for something, you can never do exactly what they're doing because they have a different perspective and different tools, obviously. But you end up doing something that is, even though you started, with that North Star, you end up somewhere else. And that's always interesting because you have your own, it goes through your personal filter, And I think what came out on the other side there with And Now We Wait was really cool. And it's different from the rest of the music. It's not club music. It's very much sort of like tense and like sort of subdued, with the drums really being like sort of processed in a sort of muffled almost, cool way. I think that's the one that comes to mind. But there was someone reminded me of a track that I did pretty late actually, like when I left Starbreeze and was doing as a freelancer, contributing with music to the game. I did something that was still like, I was like, this is really solid, but
Trying to think, that would have been 2015.
more than solid. It was actually like, but I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, but you can add it later in a text panel. Simon later confirmed that it's this track.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Last one, quick one. Any fun facts about Payday the Heist, just from working on it or being part of it?
Yeah, we were, I don't know if you know the story, we were working on, because smartphones were coming right around that time, 2010. And we were working on apps and thinking like, this is how we were gonna make money. If you're early now, with apps, we're gonna be, before the market's flooded with apps. Because some of the most popular apps were like, like a soundboard where you can push buttons and make like fart noises. Yeah. It was like so stupid, but that was like, oh, phones can do this now, before it was really becoming more sophisticated and sort of people realized how far we could take it, with and really make interesting apps, But we were making, trying to add puzzle games and stuff, And then Ulf came one day like, I don't believe in what we're doing. We need to make something that is bigger. We need to go back to making a real game, let's make something for PC, because it's easier to release on PC with Steam and everything. We can sort of set the rules ourselves to a greater degree, not have to deal with first party, Microsoft for Xbox or Sony for PlayStation, and like going through their process of making sure it's bug free and everything. Like it's sort of, we can be our own publisher. We ended up partnering with Sony Online Entertainment for the first game, so that it ended up on PlayStation still. But he came one day like, I have an elevator pitch. It's Left 4 Dead, but we replaced the zombies with cops. And we were like, why hasn't anyone done that? And I remember him saying when we were like maybe half a year, 10 months into production, like if EA comes out with like, oh, we're gonna do a heist game now, we just have to stay the course and believe in ourselves enough and think, we have something that whatever, even though they have more resources, we have something that they don't have, and just trust the vision. And they did come out, I think between Payday the Heist and Payday 2, they came out with Battlefield Hardline.
I think that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah. But we stayed the course, and I think it turned out really well. So that's, I mean, everything sprung from that first initial idea from Ulf, and just sort of his ability to enthuse the rest of the founders, and just everyone like rallying up, behind that, was great. And I feel like it's a similar thing now with Den of Wolves. That it's like Ulf has this idea that is just sort of like creating fertile ground for great storytelling, for great gameplay, obviously, player agency, and sort of a cool tone and an atmosphere. So everything is set up for it to be something great. And Payday 2 certainly is lightning in a bottle. I'm not making promises that we can capture that lightning again, because I have to really show respect for the fact that that was such a enormous, unprecedented success, really, for that game. But we're onto something here with Den of Wolves, I feel like, and I'm so excited for people to try it out and to hear the music, obviously, but to play it as well.
Yeah, vision and direction, I think, is something that games are losing these days. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, after talking to you today, and I haven't played the game or anything yet, but I think from what I've heard, vision and direction is really the big one here. And I think that's what made GTFO.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think that shines through in GTFO as well. Like, the tone and the atmosphere is so, like, it feels like a singular vision from Ulf. Like, this is the what we were aiming for, and we made some bold choices there with, like, not having anyone on the radio guiding you, just sort of like giving the players that sort of feeling of like being dropped off and like silence, you know, like no one's guiding you. There's no waypoint to follow. You're just like, I guess we're going into the darkness and finding our way all around on our own, you know. And Den of Wolves is not that, obviously, but it's like it has a similar sort of, with Ulf pointing out the direction for the team. I think we're set up to create something super interesting.
Absolutely. That's all I had. So it's been an honor talking to you.
Nice talking to you.
Thank you very much.